Hey, I'm Mack. Welcome back to my channel. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe and consider joining my Patreon for access to new videos total 24 hours early, as well as some Patreon exclusive content. So, I was told during the last live stream, which by the way, Mackatug Live is usually going to be Saturdays from 6:15 p.m. to 7 p.m. Mountain Time. That is 8:15 to 9 p.m. Eastern, or 5:15 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific. On the last live stream, someone brought up the stem cell MLM, and I was like, what is that? And well, they have provided me with a playlist of some really long webinars. But I figure we should take a look, because this one looks a little bit concerning. So without further ado, let's go.
Welcome to our probably most popular webinar that we do here at Lifewave, which is our, this is the month of April's Lifewave Product Connect. My name is Garrett Johnson. I'm the U.S. Country Manager, and it's my pleasure to be the host on this call with you today. Certainly a very exciting time as we look into what's happening in our world today. But I just want to welcome everyone, and we're so...
Okay, he is making me extremely nervous.
We're so glad that you're here with us today. I also want to address that we actually are recording this, or we actually have translators on this call today. So in our morning call, we have our French, German, Italian, Polish, and Romanian. And then this evening, when we do this again, it'll be more focused on our Asia team, which is in Japanese, Mandarin, Chinese, Thai, which is a new one, and now Spanish as well.
Yes, the Asian country of Spain.
And so if you want to find those, you can go down to the interpretation at the bottom of the screen, and you'll be able to get all the information there and be able to listen to this in your own language. And so we're so excited that you're here, and we're so excited that we'll be able to have the opportunity to share this with you today. Well, it's my opportunity to introduce our main speaker today.
I cannot express how nervous he is making me.
Who we all know and love, and that is our CEO, our founder and inventor, David Schmidt. David, are you with us?
Hey, Garrett, great to see you.
Good to see you too. It's really kind of an exciting time of year as we're kind of going into I was going to say spring. It doesn't really feel like spring much here in Utah. We still have snow on the ground.
Fuck. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Of course he's in Utah. He's probably Mormon too. God. Yeah. In Utah right now, it was one of the coldest winters ever, which was awesome. And we've gotten the most snow that there's ever been in recorded Utah history. So, and I kind of had given an update on this back when we covered the Rachel Hollis ski video, that I mentioned that we already had 300 inches of snow at Alta Ski Area, which is my favorite place to go skiing. 300 inches is about 7.9 meters for the season total. Now that it's May, Alta Ski Area for the whole season got 903 inches of snow, which is about 75 feet or 22.9 meters. Yes, which is the most ever by far. It's been awesome. I'm so glad that I got to be here for the greatest winter ever. And so, yeah, there's a lot of snow here.
But it really is a kind of a beautiful time of year where we're going into kind of rebirth of everything, and even going into kind of our Easter season coming in this of Holy Week for those that are Christian.
See, here's the thing: is the LD? I don't know if he's LDS or not, but I'm just assuming that he is. The LDS Church would really like for you to think of them as Christian. They really want the Protestants and Catholics to think of them as Christian, but most Protestant churches and most Catholics would say that LDS is not Christian because they don't believe in the divinity of Jesus the same way, which is kind of important. But yeah, the LDS Church has really been trying to brand itself as Christians. That's why they're always saying like Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like they're very emphatic about that being the name of the church.
And so kind of exciting time, even kind of with regards to our topic today, and the idea of anti-aging and why age, why arrange. It's kind of a nice time of year to be able to discuss that.
Is someone else going to tell us about it? Because
Yeah, years ago, when we came up with this name, it was back in and around between 2006 and 2008.
was your hair colored back then?
When we were talking about the Y-Age product line, it really started with this idea, well, why do people have to age in the first place, right? As you start to look at the direction, even back then, that things were heading in, it was this idea that we were seeing work which was extending life in mammals by over 30%, 30 to 40%. And in some bacteria, life extension 300, 400%.
I don't care what happens in bacteria. Bacteria aren't people.
So it became pretty self-evident, even in the early 2000s, that we would see the advent someday of this idea. Well, maybe in the future.
I mean, people then were also seeing we'd see the advent of self-driving cars, and that's been going really, really well.
People would be able to decide whether or not they wanted to age. So that's why we named the product line Y Age. And of course, we've had a lot of fun with that over the years. But now, there's been some new developments as we go almost 20 years later. We are certainly seeing the advent of the day where science has caught up, and even in mainstream.
Really, it has. Science has caught up to aging being optional. Huh. What's with how come your face is all wrinkled then? And how come your hair's gray? Why is that? Is it not working, or what's the deal?
Scientists are now predicting that immortality,
Which scientists?
Biological immortality is within reach.
Which scientists are saying this? I mean, of course, it's like theoretically, like you could theoretically get there at some point, but like there's still a really long way to go. Here's the thing is like most of the increase in life expectancy, for the most part, if it's talking about average, most of that is coming from reducing infant mortality. It's not actually coming from people's lives getting longer.
Whether or not that is a good thing remains to be seen. But I think what we could agree is that if we had a society where people were young and healthy, what that would mean is that unless you're in an accident,
I mean, of course that would be great, but that's also been like a pipe dream of humanity since humanity has basically existed, and it doesn't seem like it's working for you. Your hair's gray, you have wrinkles, and I'm not judging for that. I'm just saying like it's kind of like when a Monate hun has extensions or has a weave, and you're just like, and I'm supposed to buy hair care products from you? Like, like, what's the deal?
You would probably never get a disease, chronic disease like cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, these type of things. And so,
did he just say old timers, or did he mean Alzheimer's? It really sounded like he said old timers. Wow.
The advantage for our society, of course, is that we could reduce healthcare costs. People could stay.
Yeah, I don't think you have to explain to us what the societal benefits would be. I think that those are obvious. That it's not really an issue of we don't think that would be beneficial.
A healthy and functional, much more longer, and this
more longer. What's your problem?
This would be an enormous benefit. So, of course, there's challenges in dealing with all of those things, but it's very, very exciting.
Well, and I think the message is getting out there, because when we take a look at kind of the direction that Lifewave is going right now, we continually see month over month some amazing results, coming in with the number of people we're impacting, and the challenge that actually comes in with this size of this type of growth. But it is very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. We continue to get extraordinary testimonials, which is the most fun for me in my work here, to see our membership across the globe benefiting from our products. And of course, we see some extraordinary things along the lines of youth renewal. So I'm going to be talking about that today. When we're talking about looking and feeling younger, there are.
So do you not use your own products, or are your products not working for you? Yeah, okay, so the product's called Why Age, right? Because it's supposed to be like why age. Okay, my question for you is why gray?
Members that get these youth renewal effects that are nothing short of extraordinary.
I found some gray beard hairs the other day. Makes me feel like a silver fox.
Some people within a few months, 6 months of using the products, specifically X39, begin to look 10, 20 years younger. So we're going to delve into that in a little bit more detail today and really take a...
Well, how old are you, sir, then? I'd be impressed if you were like 90. I mean, it's not me throwing shade. Like, it's just like, you would think your hair would not be gray then if you were so good at this, looking 15 years younger thing. What was that thing that Cecily Strong says as the girl you wish you hadn't started a conversation with at a party? It's like, America needs to grow up, but also it needs to look like 15 years younger.
Look at how people age. What are some of the factors to be thinking about here? And ultimately, what's an action plan? What can people do today to get the best results with our products and have the best quality of life possible?
I love that, especially because the concept of having a kind of an action plan that you can come away with.
Especially. The word is especially.
It's great learning everything, but knowing what to do with it once you're done, I think is super invaluable. So I might just turn the time over to you to kind of just head straight into this, and let's talk about, this. And you mentioned to me actually today how this is one of your favorite topics, the idea of anti-aging. And I think that's actually says a lot, and it's really exciting.
That's interesting that it would be your favorite topic.
And so certainly this opportunity to be able to hear this from you is invaluable. So I'll turn.
It's probably easier for you to talk about it 20 years ago.
Over to you, and I'll take a good listen.
Great.
It probably seemed like a real good idea for a topic at the time.
Thank you, Garrett. Appreciate that. Well, thank you, everyone. It is awesome that I get to spend some time with you all today, and I'm definitely looking forward to our time together here. As we're getting into this subject of not only anti-aging, but also age reversal, maybe we can start with a simple...
This guy's going to tell us about age reversal? Really? 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 Really?
Analogy that will help us to understand really what's going on in the human body as we age. Now, because I'm a guy, I love sports cars. I love all cars, really, but sports cars.
Because I'm a guy, I love sports cars. Because I'm a guy, it's kind of a non sequitur there. There's a lot of men, I would say most men don't particularly love sports cars. I mean, not very many men own them, even men that can afford them. Because, it's just it's other shit that you're looking for. That's just such a, ugh. Why? Why would you say that?
In particular. And so, when you think about having a car, let's say after you drive it for a while, maybe the engine light comes on. And
Nope, not in my electric car.
The engine light will tell you that your car is overheating.
Nope, my car doesn't overheat, can't overheat.
Or you need oil.
Nope, doesn't need oil.
right? It's time for an oil change.
Never time for an oil change in an EV.
You could get another indicator light saying that you're low on fuel.
Nope, not low on fuel.
But you have systems, electronic systems today in cars that communicate with you about the function of the engine. And of course, what does the engine do in the car?
In my car, there's no engine. There's just a motor.
It allows you to move forward. And the engine has to run on fuel.
Does not.
So we're familiar with putting gasoline, diesel, petrol, benzene.
Yes, I remember long ago putting gas in my car. It was expensive.
Into automobiles, but that's only part of the equation. The other half of the equation is we need oxygen in the atmosphere to combine with that liquid fuel to make power.
Makes more power than your ICE car.
So as the car ages, engine performance declines.
Nope, just the battery.
So this could be carbon buildup in the engine. It could be wearing down of parts.
Nope, no moving parts touching.
As a result of the car getting a little bit older, but we see the performance go down. So if we can clean the engine,
doesn't need cleaning,
replace the worn parts, we can get that car engine to perform better. What does this have to do with the human body?
That's a great question. I would love to know. I was hoping you were going to answer that.
Well, it's probably obvious, but let's talk about it. There is a relationship between how the car is communicating with you and the function of the engine. So in the human body, we're going to get feedback from our cells. We're going to know that if something is wrong with our body or not, based on the feedback. We may get aches and pains.
That's not true. There can be all kinds of very serious things wrong with your body that you have no idea until either something happens or you get like a test done or something. That's why you're supposed to get a colonoscopy or another type of detection after, you turn 50 or so every 10 years.
The engine of our cells is the mitochondria.
Say it with me. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Of the mitochondria will decline, so we don't make as much energy. So that means we're going to slow down and we're going to get more tired and fatigued. But there's things that we can do to repair the function of the mitochondria, replace worn out parts, and optimize the fuel in the mitochondria. And what this will mean is that not only
you're replacing parts of the mitochondria. Okay. Okay.
Not only will we have more energy, but we change that feedback mechanism into the body, meaning because the engine is functioning better, our bodies think that our cells are younger and healthier. So the gene expression changes. So in other words,
what? Thinking is something your brain does, okay? Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
This is a formula for reversing the age of the cells, to get the cells functioning like younger, healthier cells. And it's exciting because it used to be believed that when we're born, we're going to age and then we're going to die. That was always the belief in biology. But now we know that
it's not really a belief. It's more of just, that's a fact.
It's not the case.
Okay, maybe it's not the case like in the future, But right now, yes, it is still the case. Look at you. You have gray hair, you have wrinkles, you clearly look much older than you did 20 years ago. So it doesn't seem like your shit is working.
That using epigenetics, we can communicate with the cells and change the way they act and change the way they look and they perform. So,
okay, well, I don't understand. Why isn't it working on you? How come it doesn't work for you? What's the deal with that? Please explain that.
Exciting times ahead. So let me go ahead and share screen here.
So is it exciting times ahead or is it exciting times now? Because clearly it can't be now. It doesn't look like it works for you. Is it supposed to work for everyone except for you? Why not you?
And let's first take a jump of 7 years into the future. And this just appeared this past week. We're going to be posting it on our social media. But this was from Ray Kurzweil. I was actually in a book with Ray Kurzweil, and he's a very well-known scientist and futurist.
He's a futurist. That's the main thing about him. Okay.
He was, I believe, at one point, chief technology officer at Google, and he has gotten scientific.
Okay, I mean, Google kills off more projects than Google was saying a while back that they were going to have self-driving cars, basically from all your CAPTCHA data. That's why I answer CAPTCHAs incorrectly. That's why I don't answer them correctly. Yeah, I don't want to help them make self-driving cars, at least not for free. But, you know, see how well they've done with that.
Scientific awards from 3 different U.S. presidents. So he's very, very highly regarded. And he's 75 now, but he believes that by 2030, human beings will be able to achieve practical immortality through technology. And this is already based on tech that exists and is
such as
advancing. It's the idea that we could inject our body with nanoscale size robots. Today, they're in the 50 nanometer to 100 nanometer range. And these robots can go about and repair damage. Now,
what makes you think that any of us are going to be able to afford to get those? See, Ray Kurzweil also thought that he said that by 2009, cars would be driving themselves using sensors installed in highways. That has not happened. Speech recognition being in widespread use by 2009, it was not.
Now, me personally, because I'm a Star Trek fan,
Star Trek,
I think of the Borg, and I don't want nanoscale robots in my body. Okay.
Yeah, at least not from Google.
I'm going to respect the body that God created and keep.
All right. Well, see, that's where we diverge, I guess. God should have made it better then. You're the one that's trying to make it age in reverse.
Keep it pure. So I would like to work with the laws of nature here. And we know that in the Bible talks about people having lifespans of hundreds of years old. So in reality, there is a natural means for reversing aging and staying younger longer. We don't have to do it by putting robots in our body. But the point of showing this is that this is now a mainstream idea and a mainstream concept that we're going to be able to reverse aging and extend life for hundreds of years, right? So this is not fringe science.
How can you say that it's not fringe science? Just because Ray Kurzweil said it?
That we're talking about anymore. So let's take a look at this. Let's try to break this down and really understand the problem. The way we do that is by first looking at the mitochondria. Now, there have been many different theories and concepts for how the human body is aging. There is the telomere theory, where as the telomeres shorten, they stop dividing, the cells stop dividing, and you can no longer make any new cells. So there's certainly validity with the telomere-based concept of aging. There is a genetic clock theory, meaning that the cells are pre-programmed to die out at a certain time. And then there's still yet other concepts, and it's based around the mitochondria, among many, many other things. But
okay, so the thing is, it's not like aging is not the way that maturation, is a very orderly, well-honed, like very specific process that has been honed over hundreds, millions and millions and millions of years into the process that we have right now. Aging is just when stuff stops working, and it's in a lot of systems, and it's not like one thing. There's a lot of things that are breaking down and not working as well as they used to, and or that lose their function. Like it's not just one thing causing aging. It's just a chaotic kind of breakdown of a lot of systems. I mean, that sucks, but that's the way it is. So it's not like you can just find one thing and say that that's what's causing aging.
That because the mitochondria are responsible for making energy in the cells, and ATP, amongst other molecules, is a currency.
It is literally a currency, but you need to think of it as a current, like as literally a figurative current, a flow
that our cells run on. So if we can't make ATP, or the amount of energy that our cells make declines, that's going to have an obvious negative impact on our quality of life. But what we're really saying here is not only does a decrease in energy output from the mitochondria affect quality of life, it also affects the age of the cell. So in other words, if we can improve mitochondrial function, not only can we improve our quality of life, but we can also become younger and healthier in the process. So this article, if you want to have an understanding of the role of the mitochondria in aging, this is a really good basic article to go through that. Now, there would be maybe one simple concept here that I would want to pull out, and it goes back to the analogy of the automobile. When we're putting gasoline or diesel into our cars, we also need oxygen. Human cells are very similar in the sense that we need a fuel. So this would be, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and oxygen in order to make energy. It's, of course, more complicated than that because we also need enzymes. We need different cofactors, B vitamins, that all facilitate the process of energy exchange in the cells. But the basic idea here is that there needs to be a fuel present, there needs to be oxygen present, and there needs to be antioxidants and a balance between antioxidants and oxygen. So if we want to improve mitochondrial function, we've got to have the right fuel, and we've got to have enough oxygen, and then we need antioxidants to protect this process. Okay.
Okay, whatever, man. You're not going to get benefits from dosing with antioxidants if that's where you're going with this, okay? They've found that excessive consumption of antioxidant supplements causes cancer. Okay. That will make you live shorter. It will. That's been found in very large studies that supplementation with antioxidants causes cancer. Okay, cool.
So let's take a look at what could be some of the reasons why our cells are going to age. And one of these reasons here is stress. And this could be a physical or emotional stress. And it's important to know that when we're talking about stress, you could actually have a good stress on the body. We don't normally think about it that way. We normally think of stress as being a bad thing, but to give an example, exercise is a beneficial stress. You can certainly overdo exercise, but generally when we're talking about something like resistance training, and we resistance train several times per week, this is a beneficial stress because it is going to lead to positive changes in our genetic expression. In other words, exercising keeps us physically younger. Another positive stress on the body would be intermittent fasting or calorie restriction. So in other words, if we are reducing the amount of food that we eat, this is a stress on the body, but it causes beneficial changes in our gene expression, and this leads to a longer, healthier life.
Okay, so what does this say about anything that you're proposing here?
So when we're talking about stress, we don't want to think of it as completely a negative thing. It can be a positive thing. But in this case, when we're talking about chronic stress and the link to aging, we're obviously talking about this as being a negative thing, right? So if you work long hours, you have stress at home, you have some type of chronic disease, this is going to put your body into a state of chronic stress. And the result of this is that it leads to a prolonged state of elevated levels of inflammation and elevated levels of oxidative stress. And this will in turn damage DNA and damage healthy tissue and will lead to disease. So a very, very important concept here as we're talking about looking and feeling younger is we have to have tools to manage stress on a daily basis. So this can be things like incorporating meditation, getting plenty of sleep, staying hydrated, exercising. These things will help us to manage stress. And of course, we've got Lifewave patches that we'll talk about. But it's important to
how are Lifewave patches going to help me manage stress? Because as far as I know, all of the things that you've mentioned other than the Lifewave patches are actually proven to extend lifespan. Like intermittent fasting, yes, it does. It's proven. Exercise, yeah, that's proven. It's like, but Lifewave patent, none of that hasn't been proven. So I would like to see what your proof for that is. Like my answer to this is always, so
understand that getting stress in your daily life and not managing it is going to contribute to accelerated aging. No question about it. So here's another article on this subject. It's not a clinical study, but it does refer to some studies on stress and aging. And I just included here in the event that you want to read a little bit more about it. And it also has some tips for managing stress that we've already talked about. So in other words, you plan out and get a good night's sleep, you have a healthy diet, you exercise regularly, meditate. All these things can be used to help manage your stress, right? Okay.
Yeah. So
Now, let's talk about two things that you can implement. If you're not doing them, you should be. And of course, at Lifewave, we want people to have a healthy diet, exercise, hydrate, take supplements where necessary. In other words, build your foundation. We know that by doing these things, you're not going to reverse aging. But if you don't do these things, you don't have a foundation for reversing aging. So it's very important that you
as far as I know, nothing that you do is going to reverse aging. We don't have that. That's not a thing. If we had that, you wouldn't have so much gray hair.
strive to create a program for yourself of exercise, eating healthy, getting plenty of rest, staying well hydrated, and then you're going to get better, much, much better results out of using the patches. But the quick mention here that I wanted to go through was there's the obvious benefits of exercise, which is you get to maintain and improve your bone density, you improve your strength, your stamina, you look better, you feel better, you reduce your risk of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, but resistance training, so weightlifting, doing body weight exercises, these are all going to have a beneficial change on gene expression. So in other words, the act of regular exercise can influence roughly 78 genes in the body and flip them to a more youthful state. Now we have thousands of genes. So turning on 78 genes through resistance training may not sound like a lot, but it does make a big difference. So this study was really looking at this. What effect would regular exercise have on the DNA? DNA is methylation is a process that regulates DNA. So what benefits would this have? And as this study showed, there is in fact a direct correlation between a lifelong program of exercise and the way that we age. So yeah.
I mean, it's been known for a very long time that exercise, it makes you live longer. Like, that's been demonstrated over and over and over again. You don't even have to get into the weeds with it. It makes you live longer.
Exercise, you turn on genes associated with youth. Super important. So that's a tool that you should be using, regular exercise. Now, another tool that you can be using as part of your regular program is something that I love to do, and this is intermittent fasting. It can also be known as time.
It took me the longest time to realize that technically I was also intermittent fasting, because I figured intermittent fasting was something complicated. And then I realized, like, for most people, it's just skipping breakfast. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then I guess I intermittent fast.
Restricted eating. Now, I personally would rather reduce the window of time that I eat as opposed to counting calories. Both are effective strategies and proven strategies for increasing lifespan. So in other words, the scientific consensus today is that calorie restriction increases lifespan.
This is true. They've shown that, like, restricting calories by like 500 from where they were before, it does. Like, animals live longer, including humans, when you restrict calories by like a certain amount. And it's not really clear Why?
And there's a number of reasons for that. But you're conserving resources in the cell. So you're conserving your antioxidants, for example. You're not putting as much oxidative stress. Your energy demands on the cell are not as high when you're consuming less calories. So this makes sense why it would extend lifespan. Time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting is where we're
as far as I know, there's actually not really a consensus on the explanation for why this effect occurs.
going to say that you can only eat within an 8-hour window or a 6-hour window, whichever one you want to choose here. So you might say that you'd skip breakfast. You could have coffee or tea with no sugar or milk, no sweetener. And maybe you're eating between 11 a.m. in the morning and 7 p.m. at night, or whatever window of time works for you. But the idea here is that this is a tool for helping to manage our body composition. We can reduce body fat, have a beneficial improvement on our hormone profile. So for men, for example, that participate in intermittent fasting, the longer that you fast, the higher the testosterone and growth hormone levels go. And we have a positive change on gene expressions.
Does higher testosterone make you live longer?
So intermittent fasting helps us to look and feel younger, and it doesn't cost anything. It's absolutely free, and it's safe and natural. And here, this is Salk Institute, and look what they found here, that intermittent fasting regulates gene expression across more than 22 regions of the body. So by simply incorporating this tool into your daily life, you're going to reduce your risk of disease and improve your health and your quality of life. Okay, let's keep things moving along here. Let's go over here and take a look at what would be some strategies for reversing the age of the mitochondria. There's surprisingly quite a few things that you can do to achieve this. Exercise is one, intermittent fasting is another. What are some other ways that we can improve mitochondrial function? We've certainly demonstrated that you can do it with Lifewave patches. As a matter of fact, that was one of our very first studies. Dr. Frank Schallenberger, who many of you may know, fantastic guy. And
so I'd like to point out that we've gone from like fairly reputable sources, and now we're in what appears to be Life Extension magazine. And this article we're looking at is from 2013. So it's pretty old. You might say it's aging. And when you get into these like life extension sources, there's a lot of people, because there's a lot of desperation to extend lifespan, which, is understandable, but you need to temper your expectations and you need to not turn off the skeptical part of your brain just because someone's saying what you want to hear. Notice that this place sells products. They sell, educational packages. So, you got to be skeptical.
World Authority on Ozone Therapy, which many of you know I'm a huge fan of. And Dr. Schallenberger did
ozone's going to make you live longer.
Study with our energy patches showing that within 20 minutes of applying the energy patches to the body, we got about a 23% improvement in mitochondrial function. Nutritionally,
what does that even mean? What does that mean? Because you know what? Gene expression doesn't change that quickly. It doesn't change in 20 minutes. And furthermore, what do you mean by mitochondrial function? The problem here is, number one, we don't know if this is true. Number two, we don't know what they're taking as a proxy for mitochondrial function, like what specific lab value, or what is it? What are they quantifying there? We have no idea. And furthermore, even if that's something valid, we have no idea whether improving mitochondrial function makes you live longer or makes you feel better. We don't know that.
Things that you can do here. So this is from Life Extension magazine, and this is again a nice article to read, so you get a few different perspectives on this. And here they're talking about using different nutrients like coenzyme Q10, PQQ. PQQ, by the way, will increase the number of mitochondria in the cell. But if you're exercising, you're doing resistance training increases the number of mitochondria in the cell. So you don't need nutrients like this. Not everyone is going to be deficient in coenzyme Q10. It's made in the body. Again, you have a healthy diet that may or may not take care of itself. But regardless.
And luckily, Life Extension magazine has a package of these three things for sale that you could buy. That's so convenient.
This is an interesting article on mitochondrial theory of aging. So this is for your reference.
Kind of playing it fast and loose with the word interesting.
Okay, let's take another look here. And this has to do with the connection between mitochondrial function and disease. Now, I'm going to be very clear here that we do not make any type of claims about our products treating or preventing disease. The reason I'm bringing this up is that this is work done by Bruce Ames, Dr. Bruce Ames. And one of his...
The reason you're bringing this up is because if you say that you can treat, prevent, diagnose, or cure a disease, then that means your product is a drug and needs to be subjected to the review and evidentiary standards the FDA has for a drug product. Those are making those claims is how the FDA defines a product as being a drug.
Discoveries is that the nutrients acetyl L-carnitine and alpha lipoic acid will rejuvenate the mitochondria. And one of his discoveries was finding that if you took older cells and gave them alpha lipoic acid and acetyl L-carnitine, you could get them in part to function like younger, healthier cells. There's some limitations to this approach. And X39 is far better than these nutrients in doing that. But this was an early...
Well, I guess I have to take you at your word for it then.
Discovery, and it was important because he was showing that it is in fact possible to use nutrition to change the way the cells perform. And in the process, by getting the cells to function like younger, healthier cells, it helps to prevent age-related diseases. So in other words, as our cells age, they become more susceptible to disease. If we can incorporate some of these strategies.
Okay, did anybody who took these things live longer? Do we know?
That we're talking about here, and get the mitochondria to function as, and get our cells to function like younger, healthier cells, then we reduce our risk for disease. So Dr. Ames found...
How much did they reduce the risk of disease? Which diseases?
This study that using acetyl L-carnitine and alpha lipoic acid was a means to do that. Now, we've got summer coming up, and many of you might be interested in losing a little bit extra.
This paper is from 2010. Why are we looking at 12-year-old papers? Why are we looking at aged papers?
Body fat. Well, certainly exercise, intermittent fasting is going to help to reshape your body. But I had met a scientist about 20 years ago who is doing work with alpha-lipoic acid. And another benefit to this is that it helps to balance out blood sugar. So you take this nutrient,
How?
400 milligrams, 3 or 4 times a day, and it will balance out your blood sugar.
Was that a drug claim?
And that has an effect of reducing body fat.
Drug claim.
So for those of you that, as we've got summer coming up, you want to reduce a little bit extra body fat, this is a way to support that goal.
You literally just made a drug claim and then you provided a dosage.
Okay. Now, let's talk about another study over here. Again, this is looking at the mitochondrial theory of aging. In the interest of time, we're not going to go through this. And again, actually, I showed you this a little bit earlier. So let me close that out. Okay. Let's go a little bit further now and talk about this subject of life extension and age reversal and how we might get there. And what type of evidence do we have that this might be possible? Well, let's start with glutathione. Glutathione is the body's master antioxidant. It's found in nearly every cell. It helps to regulate oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. And thousands of studies on glutathione to show its safety and efficacy.
Were there any of those in humans? Were there any studies in humans that found that people, as in humans, lived longer with glutathione? Anybody?
And one of the things we know now is that how long you live is directly correlated to the body's levels of glutathione.
Correlated.
So it must be very important.
Not necessarily. It could be that there's something that makes you live longer and that makes you have more glutathione, but it doesn't mean that more glutathione makes you live longer. It only means that it's correlated.
In fact, people that live to be over the age of 100 have elevated levels of glutathione.
Okay. Maybe. Okay. So let's suppose you have like factor A, we'll call it. And factor A causes you to live to be 100, and it also causes you to have more glutathione. But that doesn't mean that glutathione causes you to live to be 100. That means the same thing is causing those two downstream effects, because what you have is a correlation. So you don't know what the causality is. And until I hear about you having evidence of glutathione making humans live longer, like as in with a placebo control so that you know causality, I don't care.
So why is this? Well, let's go back again and look at the example of how our cells make energy.
All I'm seeing is a study that was done in mice. Humans are not mice. Are there any mice in the audience here? No. So I don't give a shit.
We take in fuel. So that's our food, our proteins, fats, carbohydrates. We combine it with the air that we breathe, the oxygen.
Yes, it's just like a car engine.
This makes energy. And in the process of making energy, we generate oxidative chemicals. If we don't have antioxidants to neutralize those waste products from metabolism, those oxidative chemicals will damage the cells. Not surprisingly, it's been found that glutathione will protect the DNA from damage. So if you keep your glutathione level
in humans
elevated, not only will it protect your cells and your DNA from damage. It can actually repair and trigger repair of the DNA.
That's interesting because the most well-conducted studies that I've seen found that elevated levels of antioxidants from supplementation causes cancer.
Before the cells divide. So glutathione is incredibly important.
Well, I'll be ready to hear you out on that when you have a study that is done on humans and that demonstrates that the humans who were supplemented with glutathione lived longer. Right now, all I see is glutathione extends lifespan in mice by 24%. And I'm actually not a mouse, so I don't give a shit. Let me know when there's a human study.
Post-pandemic, we have learned that taking the supplement NAC, N-acetylcysteine, which is a precursor to glutathione, is effective at reducing the symptoms of COVID-19. So even though we're out of the pandemic, it would be important to remember that if you are not having a diet rich in cysteine, so if you don't have eggs or dairy products or meat products as a regular part of your diet, you may want to include an NAC supplement to make sure that you're getting the precursor molecule that you need to make glutathione. Now, if you take an NAC supplement, you may see a 14% increase in glutathione. You take it twice a day, you'll get a 40% increase in glutathione.
So?
Use our patches, totally different story. You're up at 200-300%.
So?
And we'll look at that in a little bit.
None of that is evidence that it makes you live longer. That just tells me that the N-acetylcysteine is up by 200%. That was not the goal that you said you were setting out to do. The goal was, you said that we were going to reverse aging and we were going to extend lifespan. But so far, all you've told us is that you can increase N-acetylcysteine by 200%. I don't care.
But what's exciting about this information is that this is a study showing that here is a way in mammals that we can extend life. 24% is awfully good. If you were going to live to be 100 and you could get an extra 24 years of life, I think most of us would take that.
Let me know when a mouse lives to be 100. At last I checked, mice do not live to be 100.
Carnosine. Carnosine is shown to improve.
Oh, and we're just moving right along so I guess there aren't any human studies. So I guess it's not proven in humans.
Improve lifespan by 30 to 40%.
Was that also in mice or was that in humans?
So now, would that mean that we would extend our lifespan by 50%? Who knows?
I know. No. As far as I know, it doesn't do anything for humans. This just says it's in mice.
These are relatively new tools
that haven't been tested on humans.
And so we don't know.
Exactly. We don't know. All we know is that in one study, it extended the lifespan of mice by 24%. That's it. And I would like to point out that mice usually live for about 12 to 18 months. So let's see here. 18 months. We'll go with the higher number, okay? Plus 24%. That's 22 months. So they added 4 months to the mouse's lifespan on average. In this one study. In one study, 4 months were added to a mouse lifespan. See, that's the thing. When an article says that something was increased by blah, blah, blah percent or decreased by blah, blah, blah percent, a lot of times that should be a red flag, because a lot of times when they say that, the actual effect was very small. Because the absolute number could be very small, which means that when you add a percentage of it, it's kind of insignificant. It's not really that relevant. You added 4 months to a mouse lifespan. No one gives a shit. That doesn't tell you anything about what the effect would be in humans, because it could be 4 months, maybe. It could be nothing. We don't know. We don't know why it works in mice. Mice are very different creatures from humans.
If it's going to translate that way. But certainly these are inexpensive ways and things that we can do in our daily life that are known to improve our health,
No, they're known to extend the lifespan of mice by 4 months.
Our immune function.
No.
Improve our strength, stamina, and
nope.
Cognition, and
no.
Potentially have an impact on how long we live.
No, it has an impact on how long mice live. We have not proven anything in humans, which is interesting because if you were so desperate to know this, you would think that you'd be running that study right now since it's so cheap. But you're not, are you?
And the quality of our life. So this would be a good study to check out, or a good article to check out. Now,
if you take one thing away from my channel, I want it to be this. Mice are not humans. So when an article is reporting that whatever will blah, 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 blah based on a mouse study, just ignore it. Mice are not humans. If they had something there, they would do a study with humans, but they didn't. Okay, so that's where I'm going to cut this guy off for part 1. We might do a part 2. We'll see. I'm going to take a little look-see through the rest of it and see if he makes any points that are significant. As far as this part was concerned, if it's more of the same, I don't really need to hear anything else from him, because the way that he's going about this is that same way that leads you to these, articles in the popular press where it'll say that, like, oh, this salad dressing will make you, will keep you from getting cancer or whatever. And really it was like this weird compound that is also found in it caused, mice to have a 3% lower chance of contracting this cancer. And it's like, okay, that's great. Those are all great starting points for further research, but they're not starting points for telling people things that they need to buy or things that they need to change or whatever. All of this is stuff that it would be really nice if you could just do this, but just because you want it to be true doesn't make it so. And so you need to look at whether a study actually is looking at the variable that you're interested in. Is it actually looking at, did it make people live longer? Is it actually looking at, did it make people age less? Did it make people age in reverse? Or is it looking at these weird, is it looking at how high was your glutathione or whatever? Or is it looking at how long did the mice live? Because those are not the same thing. Not remotely. I've been Mack. Peace out. Bye!